Hi everyone, my name is Andy and today we're going to be going through a really fun activity. I think this activity is very engaging and very beneficial for all of us. Today we're going to be practicing our social skills, and specifically we're going to be practicing interacting with each other. Now, for this activity you do not need any equipment. I do suggest that you practice with your parents or your siblings or someone in your household. Now, as mentioned, for this activity, the purpose of it, we're going to be practicing our social skills so we could have better interaction with each other, especially in society. Now, most important way to gain social skills is by practicing and repetition. For this activity, we're going to be going through 7 different skills. The skills are personal space, eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, turn taking, conversation topics, and beginning and ending conversations. So those are what we're going to be going through today. Now for this, there are many benefits to practicing social skills. Like I mentioned, the benefits are interacting with other people and gaining more confidence in interacting with other people. For this activity, there aren't many rules. I do suggest that after each skill set that you learn, that you do pause the video and you do practice it with your parent or your sibling, so that way you could get a little bit of repetition in there and you could just gain more confidence in learning that skill and practicing out there. Now let's go through the different topics. So I'm going to describe them, all 7 of them, and then after I describe them, we're going to go into acting it out and actually practicing with our parent or sibling. So the first topic that I mentioned is personal space. Now, what's personal space? Personal space is this imaginary space you have around you where you have a safe distance from someone else. Now, because we're in a pandemic, this is very important. So personal space now has moved a little bit further. So now it is suggested that we stay 6 feet from each other. So that's the recommended personal space that we have. And we'll demonstrate that in the video today. Now, why is it important to have personal space? Personal space lets ourselves feel more comfortable when we're talking to someone or talking to other people. And it also makes the other person feel comfortable. So that way the conversation can flow and overall it could just have a great conversation. Now, when would we use personal space? We're going to be using it during a conversation, either with someone else like your mom or dad, or with multiple people around you like your family. All right, so the second skill that we have is eye contact. Now, eye contact is a skill where you keep eyes locked with each other in the middle of a conversation. So if I'm talking to you, like we're talking about the weather, for example, I'm gonna keep looking at you so that way you know that I'm engaged in your conversation and that I'm actually listening to what you're saying and paying attention. Now, when would we use this? We're gonna use this in a conversation with somebody else. So that way, like I said, they know that we're paying attention. Now, eye contact is actually very important now, especially because if we walk outside, we need to be wearing a mask. So the only way someone knows if we're paying attention is if we keep in eye contact with them. Now, the next skill that we're going to go after eye contact is facial expressions. So facial expressions, that's how we express ourselves. So we're happy, we're going to be smiling and laughing. If we're sad, we might look a little bit like, a little bit sad, a little bit down. And angry, if we're angry, we're going to be looking a little bit mad and upset. So facial expressions, why do we use them? We use facial expressions to help communicate to others how we feel and basically how we feel. So this is a good way to express to others. And this is something that we could express without talking. So if someone just sees us like happy or smiling, they might say, oh, that person's happy. If someone sees us that we might look upset, then they'll think we are upset. Now, when do we use facial expressions? This is something that we use all the time. Even by ourselves, we use facial expressions. So after facial expressions, we're gonna go into gestures. Now, gestures means moving your hands and talking like this, like moving your hands, moving your arms, things like that, being animated. Now, why do we use gestures? Gestures, like facial expressions, helps us express our feelings in a certain way, but this time with talking. So if I'm laughing, I might have my hands up like laughing like that, or if I'm upset, I might have my arms crossed like this and angry. When do we use gestures? We use gestures in our conversations with someone else, or We use gestures when someone asks us a question, and then we might think like, what did that person say, or what do I need to say to them? So after gestures, we're gonna be going over turn taking. Now, turn taking is very important in a conversation. This allows for the conversation between two or more people to flow. Now, turn taking also lets the other person know that we are interested in what they have to say. So if I'm done saying something, then I might ask them a question about what I said or about how they feel. So that way they know that we are interested in what they have to say. It also shows that we are respectful of what that person has to say. So if they need to say something, then we're respectful and we will listen to what they have to say to us. And then vice versa, if they're gonna take turns with us as well, and we just go back and forth in a conversation. Now we will be using turn taking in the conversation. That's when we will be using it. All right, so our next skill is choosing a conversation topic. So this is actually very important because this is what you're gonna be talking about. Now, this is the way that we start a conversation. And the best way to introduce the topic in a conversation is by asking the other person a question. So for me, for example, I like to cook food. So if I walk up to my mom and I'll ask her, oh, do you know how to cook this? Or do you know what I use in this? Now I just introduced a conversation topic of cooking. And then you could do this with whatever you like. So that's how you would pick it. Pick something that you actually enjoy. Like if you like sports, choose a sport topic and ask someone a question about it. If you like cooking like me, ask a question about cooking to someone else. If you like a specific TV show, you can ask someone a question about, hey, have you seen this TV show? And do something like that. Now, when would we use conversation topics, or when would we choose a conversation topic? Mostly we would choose it right before we start a conversation. If we have an idea in our head that we want to express to someone else, we would ask a question. So that's choosing a conversation topic. Now, our last skill that we're going to be going over is beginning and ending conversations. So to begin a conversation, we're going to go off of what we said last. We're going to choose a conversation topic, and then we're going to ask the other person about it. So the conversation can be like, oh, how are you doing? That's how you start a conversation, and you just start talking back and forth. Now, it is important to ask first to the other person, so that way they know what you're talking about. So I'm not gonna go to another person and say, oh, this and this happens, like, did you know that a bird sings in the morning? I would ask, oh, how do you know about this specific bird, for example? So that's how you would begin a conversation, so that way they know what you're talking about. Now, regarding ending a conversation, sometimes, or most of the time, conversations are gonna end naturally. Someone has to go, or someone has to go do their work, and the conversation will end naturally. Sometimes you might have to cut it short because you have something to do, or that person has something else to do. And that's completely normal. We're gonna go over that today. All right, so in the next video, we're gonna be actually acting out personal space and demonstrating it. Okay, so for the first skill that we're gonna learn is personal space. Now, to help me assist in this video, I'm gonna have my mom right here. She's gonna be the stranger that I'm gonna be learning social skills with. Now, like I said, for personal space, this is very important because we wanna feel comfortable ourselves and we wanna make the other person feel comfortable. So we would say this is about a normal space in between two strangers for people to talk with. Now, because we are in a pandemic, we do need to be further back. If I move further back, you won't see me. But as a general thing, you need to be 6 feet back. So for that, a good way to know is if you're an arm length away and a little bit more. That would be 6 feet. Okay? So, like I said, this is our personal space, and it's very important that we keep each other comfortable in a conversation, so that way we could just have a smooth and flowing conversation. Alright, so for the next skill that we're going to learn, it's eye contact. Now, eye contact is very important, like I said. This lets us know that we are engaged with the other person, that we are actually paying attention to the other person when they're talking to us, and it lets the other person know that we are respectful to them, so that way they know that we are actually interested in what they have to say to us. Now, for eye contact, we don't want to be looking down when we're talking to someone. We want to be looking straight up at someone like this, and we want to be talking to them in a respectful manner, and always maintain eye contact so that way they know that we are respectful and we're actually listening to what they have to say to us. All right, so like I said, for eye contact, we don't want to be looking down, we don't want to be looking around us, we don't want to be doing all that. We want to be looking straight at the person when they're talking to us. All right, so the next skill we're going to go over is gestures. Now, most gestures that we do are good in conversation. In fact, they're really natural. We just do them without thinking. But there are some gestures we don't want to do, especially when they're negative, because we might come across as being angry or upset when we really aren't. We might be really happy or just going about our business and really calm. Now, gestures are a form of expression when we're talking. So we use gestures as we are talking. Now, this is something that allows us to emphasize what we're talking about our conversation, and it's something that helps us engage the other person into our conversation. So if I'm talking just like this, sitting straight, or standing straight up if we're standing, then the other person's not going to be interested in what we have to say because we're just standing still. But if we're moving our hands and showing the other person that what we have to say is really interesting, then we can engage them in our conversation. And that's what we want. So with that being said, there are also some negative gestures. So if we're sitting down like I'm sitting down, I don't want to have my hands crossed like this because it just seems like I'm upset or angry when I'm really not. But that's the way it comes across to the other person. And then because of that, the other person will think that I'm not interested, even though you might be. So that's one main gesture that we don't want to do. We don't want to have our hands crossed like this or like this. So after this, we're going to go into the next skill, which is facial expressions. All right, so the next topic we're going to be talking about, the next skill we're going to learn is facial expressions. Now, facial expressions is a very important part of communication and a very important social skill for us to learn. Facial expression lets others know how we feel, even if we are talking and even if we are not talking. Facial expression is something that we have all the time, even when we're by ourselves. Like if I'm laughing at a video, I'll be happy and joyous and just laughing at the video. But if I'm sad about something, then I'll show it even though I'm by myself. Now, for facial expressions, now because of the pandemic, we cannot see facial expressions on other people, especially because we're wearing a mask. So if I put this mask on like this, like when I go out, no one can see my facial expression. But it is important to have facial expressions when we're not wearing a mask. So if we're talking to our family, our friends, then it's important for them to know that we are happy about something, or we might be sad or angry, or just showing our emotions. This is how we can express ourselves. Facial expressions also give us a good first impression, which is something that we always want out of someone, like a stranger. When we go have a conversation with someone, we want to make a good first impression so that way they like us. Now, a good first impression, a good facial expression for that is just to be happy, be happy about what you're talking about or what the other person's talking about, so that way they know that we are a happy person and we actually want to listen to what they have to say and want to be their friend, basically, right? So with that being said, we're going to go into our next skill, which is turn taking. All right, so the next skill that we're going to go over is taking turns. Now, like I said earlier in the introduction, turn taking is very important for a conversation. It's a very important social skill to learn. This allows a conversation between two or more people to continue and to flow naturally. And it also lets the other person know that we are interested in what they have to say. And it also lets the other person know that we want to talk to them because we're taking turns. Now, before we actually learn turn taking, we're going to do what you shouldn't do. We're going to show that it's important to not interrupt another person when they're talking about their own topic, and so that way we know what they're going to be talking about, and so that way we know to be respectful. All right, so we're going to start now, and we're going to have a small conversation. She's going to interject and interrupt. All right, so how was your day?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing today?
Oh, my day was
But
good.
do you know that I will have to go outside for a while?
No, I didn't.
But I don't know. How can I go?
Sure, you could go.
Can I go now?
If you want, sure.
Please, can I go now?
All right, so that's what we're not gonna do. We don't wanna interrupt another person when they're telling us something. Alright? So we don't wanna do that. We wanna be respectful and we wanna listen to a full conversation and their full words that they wanna use. Alright, so now we're gonna go into what we should do and what the actual turn taking. Alright, so we're gonna start now. Hi, how was your day today?
Today my day has been great. How's your day?
My day was good today. I played baseball. What did you do today?
Oh, I was just cleaning and cooking, and I was just reading some books.
Oh, really? What books do you like to read?
Oh, I like to read Beowulf.
You like Beowulf, so you like classic literature.
Yes, I do. I really enjoy it.
Wow.
How about you? Do you like to read anything?
I like to read cookbooks because I like cooking.
That's nice. Cooking is a good hobby to have.
Alright, so that's how it is. We want to say something, then they say something, then we answer them back, and they answer us back, and even ask a question, and then they answer us, and they might ask us a question, and we answer them. So that's how we want to do it. That's what turn taking is. Alright, so now we're going to go into the next social skill, which is choosing a conversation topic. Alright, so we're almost done with this activity. We have 2 more social skills left to go over. Now this social skill that we're gonna learn is choosing a conversation topic. Now, why do we do this? So, like I said earlier in the introduction, choosing a topic is very important because this is how you're gonna begin the conversation. So a topic can be how the other person's day was, like in the previous video. It could be about your favorite activity. So it could be cooking, like my favorite activity is cooking. It could be cooking, it could be playing baseball, playing sports, it could be your favorite movie or TV show. Your topic can even be about the weather if that's what you want to talk about. Now, when would we use this skill in choosing a conversation? We're gonna use this skill before we start a conversation. So when I walk up to someone and I wanna engage in a conversation with them and I want to start talking to them, in my mind I'm gonna have a topic that I want to talk about. So if I want to talk to someone, I want to talk about cooking, then I'll walk up to someone and ask them about it because I have that topic in my head already. Now, this is very important because, like I said, this is gonna be how we start a conversation with someone else, right? So that was a very short activity, but what I want you to do with the person you're practicing with, like your parent or sibling, I want you to choose a topic for your conversation, and I want you to ask how about that topic to that person. So if it's about the weather, then ask that person how they think the weather is. Like, oh, how do you think the weather is today? Or why is it so rainy? Or it's really hot outside, what do you feel about it? Ask them about the weather. Or if it's about your favorite activity, like sports, or your favorite TV show, your favorite movie, ask them about it and have a topic in your mind that you want to talk about and practice it with your parent or sibling. All right, so the next topic that we're going to go over, the next skill or the last one, is learning how to begin a conversation and how to end a conversation. All right, so I'll see you in the next activity. All right, so now we're in our last activity. We're learning the last skill for today's activity. Today, for this one, we're learning about starting a conversation and ending a conversation. Now, to begin a conversation, it's best to ask the other person a question about the topic that you chose. This lets the other person know what we're going to be talking about, so that way they could just talk about it. Now, to end a conversation, sometimes the conversation will end by itself naturally, which happens most of the time. But sometimes, especially in our busy lives, the conversation will have to be cut short because the other person has to work or you have to do something and you cannot just keep talking. So in this conversation we're gonna be talking about traveling, and then we're gonna start now. In this conversation, we're gonna be going over everything that we learned. So make sure to pay attention and make sure to practice that with the person that you're practicing with, like your parent or sibling. All right. So we're gonna have a nice facial expression, we're gonna be friendly, we're gonna maintain eye contact, and we're gonna have good posture and everything since we're sitting down, and we're just gonna have good gestures. So we're not gonna sit like this, or we're not gonna have our arms folded, and we're not gonna look angry or mad, we're gonna look happy, we're gonna have our hands folded like this and look engaged, okay? So what's your favorite place to travel to?
I like to travel to the mountains, specifically Puerto Rico.
Oh, Puerto Rico. How long have you been there?
Last time I was there was last year at this time, and we were there for a week, and it was amazing.
Wow, I've never been to Puerto Rico. What's it like over there?
It's beautiful. It's very hot and a little humid. The food is great and amazing, and the people are great people.
They are?
Yes.
Wow, that's nice. Does everyone speak English over there, or is it only Spanish?
No, most of the people speak both English and Spanish, especially the young people. They are fluently in both.
All right, and what type of food do you eat over there?
There's a lot of American food like pizza and hamburgers and hot dogs and other things that we normally eat, but they're very well known for the arroz con gandules and their pork.
Wow, that sounds really delicious. Have you traveled anywhere inside the United States?
Mostly to around 27 of the states I have actually traveled to, and they all are great states. Each of them is special.
What's your favorite state that you travel to?
New York.
New York? Why New York?
It's just the busyness of New York, the beauty of it, and how people are so busy, and there's so many things going on at the same time that is exciting.
Wow, that does sound exciting. I'll have to take a trip to New York one day.
I hope you do, because you will love it.
Well, I have to go now because I have to go to work, but it was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Have a great day at work.
All right, you too, man.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that was the conversation. So notice how I didn't interject into what she was saying. We were taking turns, and we were maintaining eye contact, and we were just engaged with each other. Now, that's how a social interaction should be. Now, remember, we also want personal space. So we are sitting down, which is different, but we still kept our personal space. So we were comfortable with each other. She was comfortable by herself, and I was comfortable by myself, and we were able to listen to each other. Okay, so this is what we went over overall today. Today we went over personal space, went over maintaining eye contact, we went over using correct gestures, like not using our arms crossed, but we're having polite gestures. We went over facial expressions, so that way we could make a good first impression to another person. We also went over taking turns, so that way we are respectful to what other people have to say to us, and we're respectful in the conversation. We also went over beginning and ending the conversation, how we just did right now, where we will start by choosing a topic for a conversation, like traveling, and then we end the conversation by saying bye to each other and then going our own way. And then we also went over choosing a topic for our conversation. So remember, for choosing your conversation topic, you want to choose something that you enjoy. Like for me, it's cooking. In this conversation, we chose traveling because we love to travel. You could talk about your favorite sport, like baseball or basketball or football. You could talk about your favorite TV show or movie, and you could talk about the weather if you want to talk about that. All right. So for this video, you could pause it at any time that you want to pause it, like I said, and I really hope that you guys do practice all these different skills that we learned today, because practicing is going to make perfect your social skills. All right, have a good day.